All right, so one question that a lot of folks, I think, have in their heads, but no one wants to ask because we all feel like we should know how to do it, and we've seen movies, and we see it done horrifically incorrectly, is how are you actually supposed to open up a bottle of sparkling wine? We're so happy to have an expert with us today. Dr. Coleman, what do we do?
Okay, so pop culture has told us that spraying bottles and shaking bottles and all of that is an acceptable way to open sparkling wine. However, the loud pop doesn't allow you to really capture the full essence of sparkling wine, what these winemakers have worked so hard to get, which is the really nice bubbles. So you want to open it as quietly as possible to keep as much of the gas in there. The other thing that's really important to recognize is that sparkling wine bottles, particularly if they're traditional method, have a lot of pressure in them. They have 6 atmospheres, or in PSI, it's like 88 PSI, which is about the same as a tire of a semi.
Wow.
Right? So if you point a cork at someone and launch that thing, you could crack someone's head open, right? Like it's one of those things that you have to be really careful. So, I'm going to walk through this process. I'm going to do this standing up because sitting down and doing this seems a little weird to me. So, you have this bottle. You're going to take off your foil.
Defoil.
All right. You have the cage, or in French and Spanish and Catalan, it's also referred to as the muzzle, which makes a lot of sense.
It does make sense.
All right.
I like that.
And you have this tab, and it's always 6 turns to undo the tab.
Okay.
Okay, so once you've undone the tab, keep your thumb on the top. Because now that it's loose, the only thing keeping it from spraying is your thumb. If you are very quick, you can take the cage off. But I usually I like to grip the cage for traction. So you're going to hold this and turn the bottle. Don't turn the cork.
Okay.
And now you said the goal is to do this as quietly as possible, right?
Yes.
Didn't you have a funny story about that?
I do. Hold on. Mine is about to...
Concentrating, Aaron.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Ooh.
Okay. All right.
Nice.
That was louder than I would have liked, but it wasn't too bad. All right, so funny story that connects to both of these wines that we're going to talk about today. That was good.
Ooh, Aaron.
That was
Not good
really
at a lot
nice.
of things, but thank you very much.
That was very nice. So when I was in the Penedès region talking to winemakers in 2023, one of them described this process as, and I'll translate it, if you open a bottle of sparkling wine well, it should sound like a nun's fart. Right? Like if you think of the most holy of women, right? And there's this notion that, women don't fart and all that. And then if you think of a nun, it should just be a silent, like, toot, and, like, keep it moving, right?
I love it.
It's
oh my God,
horribly vulgar in English. I mean, it sounds bad in Spanish, too, but in English, it just sounds so terrible. But
God.
That's what you're going for, right? You want, like, a slight hiss of the bottle.
Nice.
Okay.
Colin, Joel,
I'm
did you
going
try?
for
Did
mine.
you get your shit?
Yeah.
I'm going for it right now.
Turn the bottle, Joel.
The bottle.
Do it.
Turning the
Turn the
bottle.
bottle.
Turning the bottle. Here we go.
Ooh. Did
Ready?
you even hear mine?
Getting
Was it
close.
that good?
Oh, wow.
That was good.
Oh,
I
that
didn't
was
even know
very
you were
good.
done.
Okay, ready? Here we go.
Ooh,
That
was
wasn't
so
bad.
bad.
Not bad.
Is
Not
a-
bad.
That was pretty good.
That was okay?
So
All right.
I'm sure what you noticed is as you start turning the bottle, you can feel the pressure build, right? And so then you have to really hold on tight because if you let go, that cork's going. And that's
Outta here.
That's it.
Welcome to Stop Wasting Your Wine, a wine review podcast where we waste our wine so you don't have to. On this episode, we interview
Dr. Jeffrey Coleman, co-founder of the Milwaukee Wine Academy.
everyone. Welcome back. We are so excited, as always, that the three of us get to hang out with you all. But beyond that, we have an incredible guest with us today. As you heard in the intro, obviously, so much more than just an expert in how to open a bottle of sparkling wine. We are joined by Dr. Jeffrey K. Coleman, who is an associate professor of Spanish at Northwestern University and the co-founder of the Milwaukee Wine Academy, a wine school dedicated to making wine more fun and approachable for everyone. Obviously something that is near and dear to our hearts on the show.
Absolutely.
He is currently writing a book called Liquid Identities, Bottling the Nation, which explores Spanish national identity through the wines the country produces. And he holds a WSET Level 2 award in wine, Spanish wine scholar, Cava educator, and certified sherry wine specialist certifications.
My gosh.
By far the most qualified person in this room. If you add the three of us together, he still wins. Oh, yeah. Dr. Coleman, thank you so much for joining us. We are so excited to have you.
Thank you guys so much. It's an honor to be here. As I have mentioned to you before we started recording, I'm a big fan of the show, so it's really cool to be here in the same space with you guys and be able to drink with you guys. This is going to be fun.
Yes,
absolutely. We've been looking forward to this for a long time. Appreciate you being here.
Yeah, and I'll say for the listener at home, we have been talking back and forth with Dr. Coleman for months now. We've done like some serious coordination so that we all have the same bottles of wine that we're sharing today. We're going to play the same games that we always play. Again, so funny for me as someone doing the show that like Dr. Coleman reached out like, do we get to play one of your games? I was like, yes, this is cool. People like the games. Like,
That's a good
very
sign.
cool.
Yeah.
They're so fun.
Yes. But yeah, we are just so excited. So, but before we get in the wine, we have a few questions for you. We're going to jump in.
All right.
We're going to talk a little bit, then we're going to drink, and we'll talk some more.
Sounds good.
Yeah, sounds like a good way to spend some time.
So, yeah, before we get started, I have to say, Dr. Coleman, you are not a professor of wine. You are a Spanish professor at Northwestern. You are writing a book about Spanish culture and the history of Spain and wine. Your favorite glass of wine, I noticed on one of the articles I read about you before this, is the 2000 Urbina Gran Reserva Rioja. We're big Rioja fans. But, talk to us about your wine journey and how you got to where you are today.
Fantastic. Well, thank you. The wine journey. I have to say that similar to you guys, I mean, it was the pandemic. I've always kind of been into wine in my adult life. And when I moved to Milwaukee in 2014, there's a local shop in our public market called Thief Wine that did classes every 2 weeks. And I went to those pretty religiously and really just, wanted to learn more about what I was drinking and have a better appreciation for those things. I'm someone who's really in touch with other cultures and other parts of the world. And so it meant a lot to me. If I'm going to drink a wine from Spain, I need to know like where in Spain is it coming from and learn more about that, the region, the grapes, the history, etc. And so, fast forward to the pandemic, I had just gotten hired at Northwestern. I was looking for a new research project. And, while everyone else was making sourdough, I was drinking quite a bit of wine. And I was like, you know what? This could be an interesting project. And I didn't know where to start because I was like, well, if I want to talk to winemakers, I need to really know wine. And so I spoke to some sommelier friends and they suggested a certification called Spanish Wine Scholar that's run through the Wine Scholar Guild out of DC. And in taking that course, which was a 10-week course, it was literally everything there is to know about wine made in Spain. It was kind of weird as a professor to kind of go back to school and be a student again. I was like, oh, this is why I became a professor, because I'm a nerd, clearly. Had a blast doing it. And, in that process, I was like, okay, there's a project here because every part of Spain has such a different type of history. And, in your show, you guys have had some Albariños from Galicia. You've drank some stuff from Ribera del Duero and Toro. You guys have had things from Catalunya and, things from Rioja. And those are really different parts of the country. And so my project is trying to look at how do the wines reflect those different cultures and histories that are happening across Spain. And then, the next step was after getting certified was, okay, I need to go start talking to winemakers. And so I really took it upon myself to kind of just throw myself out there to importers and distributors and say, hey, I'm writing this book. Can you connect me to any winemakers in Spain when I go, on my next trip? And my first trip was in February of 2023. Went to Catalonia. I went to Barcelona Wine Week, which is Spain's like largest wine festival.
Oh, that sounds
There's like,
cool.
it's amazing. Y'all should go because you guys are part of the wine industry, so you should go too.
We are.
Your media. Yeah, you guys
right.
could do a live on site.
That would be so fun.
I love it.
Yeah, I'm like projecting into your future. Sorry, guys, but
No, I love it.
Someone's got to do it.
Please.
someone's got to do
Please.
it. But there were over 800 wineries there from all over Spain, and that was super cool over 3 days. And then I was like, well, since I'm in Barcelona, the Cava region and the Penedès area aren't too far away, and so I went to start interviewing folks over there. And actually, that's why. Part of why I picked these two wines that we're going to try today, because they came out of that trip that I made, and they were some of the first winemakers that I got to talk to.
Amazing. So you not only decided that this was a path you wanted to go down, but you made your network. Like you reached out to people and found the connections and really made this happen.
Yeah, I think one of the things I've always been kind of a tenacious person, but I think no one's going to just give you anything for free.
Sure.
And so I think, one, it's having that knowledge base behind your name, right? Yes, I'm an academic at a top institution in the US, but I land in Spain and everyone just sees me, right? And they're like, who are you? Where did you come from? Are you legit? And so I really took it upon myself to study and really get to know these wines before I got there so I could ask cool questions, but also learn even more than what I learned in classes.
I'm glad you opened up that tenacious door, because we definitely did some research about you ahead of time. And I think you got that hustle gene that some of us might be lacking. Because I know you're not just working on a book. You have written multiple books. You also, I believe, took up curling and got your scuba certification. And you have a podcast about fountain pens. So you do a few things, Dr. Coleman, I've noticed.
Yeah, when I pick up hobbies, I go really hard. Yeah, I live in Wisconsin, so when I moved here, I'm not a winter sports guy, and discovered curling, which is like a big deal here in Wisconsin, and I was like, this is amazing. I'm also a strategy guy, and so it's like chess on ice. And I was like, the ice part I could go without, but it's when it's negative 15 outside, the curling rink is actually only 40 degrees, so it's not that bad.
Oh my God, that's so
awesome.
funny to think about.
I love that.
You warm up in the ice rink.
Yeah.
You mentioned the intersection of culture and wine in Spain, and I was just wondering if you had kind of a favorite fact or a most interesting fact that you like to talk about or discuss, because I just think that's such an important part of wine.
There's a couple. I'll start off with one that's not necessarily joyous, but one that I think is really important to talk about. Colonization and slavery might not have been possible without wine. Right? So I'm writing a chapter on the Canary Islands and the wines produced there. When the conquistadors left mainland Spain, they stopped in the Canaries, loaded up on wine, as vineyards had been planted there in the 1500s and a little earlier, before going to the Americas, right? And you couldn't drink water back then. You would get disease and get, very sick, right? And so what were people drinking across the Atlantic was wine, usually sweet wine that had a lot of caloric value. But, wine was a big part of the colonial period that I think a lot of people forget about, which is why we have, the Mission grape in California is a grape from the Canary Islands originally. The reason you have wine in Mexico is because Franciscan and Dominican monks were taking vines and planting them in Mexico. Like, all those things come out of Spain, right? So that's really cool. Another kind of cool fact that I guess connects more to sparkling and the wines that we're going to try today. The first sparkling wine in Spain was invented in 1872 by a man named Josep Raventos, who went to Champagne and kind of studied what they were doing, because there were lots of French people in Barcelona who were drinking the new hit thing, which was champagne, right? And bringing that down, and he wanted to make his own version of it. And then phylloxera hit Catalonia, right? And so then wiped out lots of vineyards. They replanted everything on grafted vines with the grapes that we know today in large part, and kind of leaned into this wine and sparkling wine culture that we have in the region today. So, phylloxera did a lot of damage, but actually in this part of Spain, it actually was I won't say positive, but ended up being net positive.
Yeah.
It's so
Very
funny
cool.
how like there's aspects of like wine history that kind of like mirrors each other across, because you're talking about phylloxera in Spain. And it's reminding me back when we learned, was it Alsace that we were talking about, that there was like a major.
I mean, all of Europe was affected by phylloxera. So pick a region, and the answer is yes.
Pick a region, throw a dart. But it's
Yeah.
also had a similar aspect of like the wiping out of certain areas allowed for like replanting and repurposing and new owners, and like it's interesting that when you hear something from one area, you're like, oh, this is kind of like a ripple of somewhere else that we've already talked about, which is always interesting.
Yeah.
So, Dr. Coleman, you mentioned that you chose these two wines because they were some of the producers and winemakers that you met on your trip.
Yeah.
Could you tell us a little bit more about these wines? And
Yeah.
you said 800 winemakers, so that's incredible. What made these two kind of stick out, and why'd you want to highlight those with us?
Yeah. When you guys reached out to me to have me on the show, I had a huge list of wines that I wanted to bring on. My thing to Aaron was my goal was to get into the wine fridge. We'll see if that happened. But
Love that.
it was really hard to find wines that all four of us could get. And part of the issue of the U.S. wine market is that there's lots of distributors and there's lots of things going on.
Sure. Yeah.
And I don't know. I've been on a sparkling kick lately, and for the book, this is the chapter of the book that I've written and on sparkling wine in Spain. And these two wines represent two very different philosophies on sparkling wine that we'll talk about a little later. And so, but both really excellent producers, Juvé Camps and Huguet de Feixes. So I figured, they'll be very radically different, but both excellent quality.
And that's like super exciting, because we've talked about on the show, like sparkling wine and champagne just ends up being something that people are like, I can only drink this at a birthday party or on New Year's Eve. And we're just like, no, like sometimes it's just another good wine to drink on a Tuesday. Like, it's fine.
I mean, I had sparkling wine last night with some roast chicken and mashed potatoes and green beans. And I'm not a big white wine drinker, so it's either red or sparkling in my house. And sparkling wine literally goes with everything. And we can talk more about that later when we get into these two, but you can pair sparkling wine with so much.
I'm going to pair it with another sparkling wine.
Yeah, I guess we all are there.
Me too.
So we do want to talk a little bit more about your background and learn a little bit more about the Milwaukee Wine Academy. But before we do that, let's sip on some wine. So if you would, could you talk us through the wines that we're drinking tonight, just as far as, producer, grapes, that kind of stuff?
Tastes like wine.
Yeah. All right. So our first wine is from Juvé Camps. This is from the Cava appellation. And this wine is called the Reserva de la Familia, which means it was the family reserve, right? So this was the wine that the Juvé family actually drank for holidays, special occasions, and so on. You'll also see on the label it says Brut Nature Grand Reserva. The Brut Nature part meaning that there's no sugar added, no dosage at the end of the process. And then Grand Reserva in Cava means that it was aged on the lees for 30 months. 30 months. In this case, we have this particular wine was aged for 36, but the minimum is 30 to be Grand Reserva. And it's a combination of 3 grapes, which is the kind of, I guess, triumvirate of Cava grapes, a Xarel-lo, Macabeu, and Parellada. So if you think of the triumvirate that Champagne has, this is Cava's version of it. And we have a 2018 vintage. And let's see, what else is there? We are at 12% ABV, which is normal for sparkling wine. It's not, sparkling wines don't usually get too high. And actually, most sparkling appellations have regulations for how high they can get. So 12 is It's pretty standard. Yeah.
Very cool.
I love hearing the grapes pronounced correctly because I've been Zorello is how I've always pronounced it, but that was nothing like you said it. So
No, it's like an
Thank you.
SH.
Chirello. Okay.
Shirello,
cool.
yeah.
Sure.
Yeah,
That's
and
awesome.
that double L with the dot floating is a thing that from Catalan, it's called the twin L. So, in Spanish, if you have two L's next to each other, it sounds like a Y.
Yeah.
And so they have this separate letter called the floating L or the twin L, where you put a dot in the middle so that you pronounce both L's. So it's Sharelu.
Ah.
Yeah.
Chirello.
I
We're learning
never
even
knew
more
that.
than usual.
Yeah.
I
Love
do
that.
this to see if I'm a nun.
Aaron, you're a
Yeah,
pro.
but I think it was funny.
I'm gonna quit my
Not
job.
bad.
I'm gonna
Not bad.
open sparkling bottles. And I will say this is a very cool looking bottle. And also, like, we talk about vintage and like sparklings. I'm not crazy, right? Like, you don't normally see vintage on a lot of sparkling wines, or is that more of a Cava thing? Or
So you see it in high-end champagnes.
that's why I've never seen it.
And I mean, a lot of Cava does not have vintage either, but in top producers, you'll definitely see vintage on them.
So I thought
What's
that was-
interesting to me about these wines, just in general, Cava to me has always been kind of like a value sparkler, I would say. Usually you see it in the $10 to $15 range. So I'm excited to try a more serious version of Cava just because it's not something that I'm used to be honest.
I think one of the things that Cava and later the Corpinnat that we'll try after every sparkling region around the world is trying to compete with champagne. And the thing is, champagne alone can live off its name, right? And not every champagne is good, but the bad ones can ride the wave of being in champagne, right? Whereas like
Right.
Cava and other, sparkling regions really have to fight to get on the shelf, to get on a wine list, to be at a restaurant in a way that champagne doesn't always have to. And that's why I was really excited to bring these two to kind of,
Yes.
change the narrative a little bit. Nothing against champagne, but as a Hispanophile, I was like, there's good sparkling wine in Spain.
No,
Absolutely.
you're
Absolutely.
speaking our language.
Yep.
Like,
And
we
you don't have
talk
to
all-
pay as much.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. We talk all the time about like people who don't. One of the many reasons why this is so important is people who need to go to a housewarming or go to a celebration. They feel like they have to walk into the store and buy a $90 bottle of champagne because they're like, that's what good wine is, and this is what I have to do. And we know that there's really good sparkling wines from different regions, from different countries that are going to be really high quality, but because they're not riding the wave of being from Champagne, they're a much more affordable price point, but you got to know what you're looking for.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, if you're spending $90 on a bottle of sparkling from Spain, it's going to be out of this world. Like, there's very few that cost that much in the U.S., and those ones are insane.
Yeah, I would imagine because I mean this is $20.
Yes.
And this is just such a lovely, presentation here of a Cava. And I'm super excited that we started with a Brut Natural too, because wow, this is really nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what I like about this is it gives you all the same Cava vibes that one of the cheaper Cavas would give you, but it's such an elevated level. Like if you love Cava and you usually drink those cheaper ones, this would blow your face off because it's just it gives you all those citrusy vibes, but it also has that really nice bready undertone, and it's just like elevated on a level that I've personally never enjoyed Cava. So really tasty wine.
Well, and that's the thing, right? Like most of the Cavas that we're seeing, for example, the famous black bottle of Feixes, that stuff is at the bare minimum of Cava of 9 months aging, and you're not going to get the bready notes until you hit at least 18 months. And so this being 36, like you open it and you should smell a little bit of bread. It'll be interesting when you try the second one, what you think of that, because that one even more so for, because it's aged even longer. But yeah, I mean, 3 years on the lees, that yeast is kind of incorporating into the wine at that point, right? And you get those nice bready kind of brioche vibes.
Yeah. We're kind of bumping around because we're so excited about the conversation. Just before we continue moving, does anyone want to jump in? Like, what else are you getting on the nose right now before we get into the taste? Dr. Coleman, is there anything you want to toss in there besides the breadiness?
There is still quite a bit of fruit there, right? Like you can get some apple,
Absolutely,
definitely
100%.
get some pear. The bread is there, but not overpowering. It's really fresh. And as Joel mentioned, right, this being a Brut Nature, it's super dry, which is the other thing. Like a lot of sparklings, cheaper sparklings are going to be sweeter, which, nothing against that. But I think a lot of the top producers are leaning more towards Brut Nature because by not adding any sugar, this is the truest expression of the grapes that they have, right, and their whole terroir. A fun fact about this wine, this is the #1 selling Gran Reserva Cava in the world. And it was like the name, Reserva de la Familia. It was a family secret for decades because in the 70s, no one was drinking Brut Nature. Everyone was drinking sweet or semi-sweet sparkling for Christmas. And so they kept this for themselves. And it wasn't until they had some family friends over that were like, you guys should sell this. And they were like, no one's going to drink it. It's too dry. And it took off.
Amazing.
It's so funny how just like the culture of wine, of like what people look for in wine, has shifted over the past like 50 years and getting away from like the over sweet to like now more like thoughtful experiences, I think.
Yeah.
And I'm fresh is the perfect way to describe this. This kind of wine just, you take a sip and you just want to keep drinking it because it just livens up the palate, and all the flavors are really nice. This is far above the porch pounder, but I would happily sit outside and drink this on the porch on a nice warm night. This is
Can have a really
just
fancy
lovely.
porch.
Yeah.
Really fancy. Maybe a
Put a really
lanai.
nice chair on my
A
porch.
lanai.
Colin with the vocab words of the week.
Lanai pounder, is that a thing that we're doing now? I don't know.
It is now.
Is this possible?
I don't know if it's quaffable. I have to agree with, the definition you guys gave on the last episode. This is not a simple wine.
Agreed.
It's not.
Yeah.
Agreed.
So you can quaff it, but it's not quaffable.
Yep.
No, it almost slows you down a little bit. Like sometimes on the show, I look at my glass and the wine is gone, and then I pour more wine. And I feel like I'm drinking this a little bit slower than I normally would a lighter wine, just because there's so much going on.
Appreciating it.
And the
Yeah.
bubbles. It's slowing me down a little bit. Like I wouldn't be able to pound this, and I wouldn't feel very good afterwards if I did.
Right. Do you want me to talk about the second one,
Yes.
Colin?
Yes, let's do it.
Please, that would be great.
Okay. So our second wine is the Huguet de Can Feixes Brut Nature Corpinnat from 2017. So this winery is not too far away from Juvé Camps. It's a couple towns over. We have a slightly different mix of grapes here. We have mostly Parellada, and the reason for that is they are at altitude, and Parellada does much better at altitude than Xarel·lo and Macabeo that you find closer to the coast. And then you have about 30% Macabeo and 14% Pinot Noir, which is a really interesting piece. And we'll talk a little bit about the difference between Cava and Corpinnat in a bit, but that inclusion of Pinot Noir is actually a bit of a rarity for Corpinnat. So yeah, and this wine is 2017 and was aged for close to 6 years on the lees.
Wow.
I should have put on a nicer shirt. I feel underdressed for what we're drinking. I have to go.
No, come back. You're in the right space. So one of the rules that Corpinnat has is their minimum is 18 months for aging, but every winery that's part of Corpinnat must have one wine in their lineup that's at least 30 months and one wine in their lineup that's at least 60. So this would be one of the ones at 60. So my question to you all is, what do you, like, in terms of what you get on the nose, can you smell this almost 6 years?
It's
Oh
immediate.
my God.
Yeah.
I don't. I am the worst on this show when it comes to figuring out what words to say, but I can immediately smell the difference between the two. It's like warmer, if that makes sense. It's like deeper and warmer. I mean, it's probably the breadiness, right? Like it's just so much. It's so much heavier on the nose than the first one.
Breadier,
absolutely.
buttery. Really nice.
No, the lees, you really taste the lees impact here. It's really, or smell anyway, but you still get some of that fruit too. It's not all breadiness. You still get some of that fruit coming through. I mean, it's definitely
still super crisp.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. For sure.
Yeah, and although the fruit is more subdued in this one, which makes sense, right? It's aged for double the amount of time. So the fruit is there, but it doesn't jump out like in the first one. And if you were to put the two of these next to a Cava or something else from this region that was aged for only 9 months and line those three up, you would only smell fruit in that young one. You get a little bit of bread in the Juvé comps, and you get a ton of bread and like more subdued, subtle fruit in the Feixes.
I say that the one word that pops into my mind drinking and smelling this is elegant. This is just an elegant wine. Oh my goodness. It's like silky, like it's doing something to my brain that is not very familiar, and I'm enjoying it. No, beyond the alcohol.
Well, and Colin is our resident Cava drinker here too. I would say you've probably explored Cava the most out of all of us, and so for you to be having that experience, that's saying a lot. Absolutely, and I totally get it.
Oh, and you can't compare this really to the Cava you get at the grocery store. Oh, totally. This is I mean, even and no offense to the wine that we just tried, but you can't even compare this to that, to be totally honest. I mean, it's really a whole different level. But I do have a question. We mentioned the word Corpinnat here a couple of times, and before you introduced us to Corpinnat, I had no idea what it was. Can you explain a little bit about the difference between a Cava and Corpinnat?
Yes. Okay. I will give you the Cliff Notes version of it because it can get a little complex. So I'll start with the Cava piece. So Cava is an appellation in Spain, or one of the DOs, Denominación de Origen, that was founded in 1991 after a long process of being, made in the country. And there were 6 producers who in 2017 founded an association called AVEC, which is the Asociación de Viticultores y Enólogos de Corpinnat, which was growers and viñadores or winemakers of Corpinnat. And they were some of the top Cava producers. Gramona, Upart, Nadal. And what they were looking to do is kind of consolidate a group of like-minded folks who were doing things organically, were hand harvesting, hand riddling, doing, really painstaking work and making high-quality Cava. So what they wanted from the appellation Cava was to have like a labeling category, similar to what we have with, Reserva and Gran Reserva. They wanted to be able to say Cava and then Corpinnat, right, to designate those who are doing this kind of high-level winemaking. They got into debates with the regulatory board of Cava, and they couldn't reach an agreement. And so in 2019, the 6 producers left the appellation. And that's why you only see Corpinnat on the bottle. So it is actually wrong to refer to these as Cavas because they're actually not in Cava. They are separatist. Wow. Yeah, they succeeded. Wow. And then shortly after, actually the one we're drinking today, Huguet de Feixes, was the 7th winery to join Corpinnat. And as of this week, actually, it's really interesting timing. Yesterday, there was a press release that the 14th member of Corpinnat has just joined. So it's a kind of small and mighty group, but they have really high standards. You have to be 100% organic. You have to hand harvest. You're not allowed to white label anything. You can't buy wine that is already made and then put your label on it. You have to age things for a long time. You have to pay farmers, a living wage. Like, they have really cool regulations to be part of Corpinnat, but that also makes it really hard to get in.
And you said 2019, so this is like a very recent development.
Yes. Yeah.
It's just, when you hear wine, you're like, oh, this is something that's been around for 70 years. You're like, no, like there's still a very active and shifting scene that's happening.
Honestly, we're mind melding here because I was having the same inner monologue there where, I feel like we'll every once in a while go down, a rabbit hole on just the history and how history intersects with wine, which is so fascinating. And we did that a little bit earlier here. But then also for something so impactful to be happening now is really cool. And I bet you it's something that, people maybe don't even realize there's this big shift in Spain that's happening right now. That's just pretty cool to think about.
Yeah, I think that's actually one of the hard things when selling these wines in the US, right? Is that people, if we think about the 3-tier system, right? You have the winery that has to sell it to an importer, that has to sell it to a distributor, that sells it to the shop that you buy it from. And it's a big game of telephone. And so to be able to tell the story that I just told about Corpinnat and just pass it all the way down, by the time it reaches the store that you guys go to in Orlando, they're just going to put it next to the Juvé and Camp's Cava and be like, it's Cava. And it's...
Right.
I mean, are they using mostly the same grapes? Yes. But they have a radically different philosophy, radically different style of winemaking. And, there are folks in Cava that are doing very similar stuff, right? Juvé and Camp's, their super high-end wines are identical in style to the ones that you're seeing in Corpinnat. They just chose not to join Corpinnat. They didn't want to leave Cava, and that's every winemaker and family's decision, right? What appellation or region they want to belong to. And sometimes those things can get political, and sometimes those can be family drama. You've seen siblings split online, about which part of appellation to belong to, and in Spain and in other parts of the world. And so, it's a really tough decision, I think, when these types of shifts happen. But like Aaron said, you don't see these things happening too often now.
Sure.
These were lots of things that you saw in the 19th century and early 20th, but for it to be happening now is kind of amazing.
It is, absolutely.
Well, I think, and from the consumer side, like this is one of the reasons why wine education is so important, right? Because if you don't have the base knowledge, if you're just like, oh, wine is wine, red wine, white wine, whatever, you're missing the opportunity to have a better experience or even get a better bang for your buck, because you look at the two bottles, like you said, it's like, this is all Cava, it's all the same, they're all sitting next to each other. And if you don't have like a foundational knowledge, and I don't expect the average person to be able to like nail every region of wine in the world by the time they're 50, but like it's helpful to have a broad range, or at least a stronger foundation.
Right. And if you know that, either you're not interested or you have a rush of time or so on, lean on the staff in the wine shops, right? And that's why I think supporting small local wine shops is so important, because those are the folks who are invested and will take the time to explain these things to you and help you decide. Both of these are excellent wines, but depending on the vibe you're going for, you're going to pick one over the other, right? And, there's also the price difference, right? The Juvé and Camp's is 20. The Feixes, depending on what market you're in, could be between 30 and 40, which for what it's tasting like still is nothing. Like,
it's a great deal.
You just blew my mind with between 30. I thought you were going to say between 50 and 60 or 60 and 70, but between 30 and 40, get out of here. No way.
Yeah.
Colin, at
it's
this
not
time,
bad.
I just want to remind you that you do have a champagne in your wine fridge, and you should really start thinking in your head of, is that champagne really better than this Corpinnat? I'm just tossing it out there. Don't worry about too much.
No spoilers.
Objection,
no spoilers.
leading the witness. Come on.
I just want to shake things up.
I mean, Colin has to decide for himself if he wants to have a face-off or not, but...
There it is. Yeah.
Ooh, I love that.
That's going to be a slightly costlier face-off than I did, but, it's about
It
time.
would be. Sure.
Awesome. All right. So we're going to keep drinking. We normally, when we have a red, we go back to it after a little bit and we see if it's opened up. I don't think that's going to be, the vibe tonight, but, we do want to learn a little bit more about the Milwaukee Wine Academy, right?
Yeah.
So where did you get the idea between writing all your books and curling and scuba diving and pen podcasts? where in there and why did you say, hey, I'm also going to found a wine academy?
Yeah. So part of it was while I was studying for the Spanish Wine Scholar certification, going around different shops in my local area here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and realizing there were no people that looked like me in any shop. Which is wild to me because Milwaukee is a minority majority city. It's like 40% black. So to have not one black person working in any of the shops that I was going to buy wines from, not seeing, black sommeliers or people who knew wine, I was like, this doesn't make sense. And not even seeing, every once in a while you would see other black people at the wine bars or wine shops buying wine, but they weren't involved. And I was like, well, how do you change that? And I think this is where education is so important, right? It's that people can't obtain something that they don't know about, right? And so I think it's so important to educate. I mean, that's just kind of my calling as a teacher. And I was like, well, how can I make a difference in that respect? Like, I don't want to be a sommelier. I don't want to work in a restaurant. I don't want to work in a bar. But I was like, okay, how can I help people really fall in love with wine, but as an extension, fall in love with the world? And I was like, okay, I wanted to start a school. And so my friend Tim Cole, who did the Spanish Wine Scholar certification with me, he and I were at our favorite wine bar, Thelma Carroll Wine Merchants. And one day we just were talking to the owner of the bar, and we were just writing stuff down on a napkin, and we were like, we should do this.
Amazing.
We had no idea what we were doing at the beginning because we were like, wait, where do we get the wine from? And do you need a permit to pour these wines and teach people? And like all those kinds of things that the first couple of months were a little sketch, but to be honest, all with good intentions, but maybe not done always in the best method. But I think the thing that helped me was like, okay, I know how to write a curriculum and I know how to teach, right? And I know how to break things down in a way that people will understand. And that was the fun part, was getting a group of people in a room and saying like, okay, here's this sparkling wine. Do you know what acidity is? And how do I help you understand the concept of acidity? Or what is body? Right? And, because we're in Wisconsin, I use a milk analogy. I'm like, is it skim milk, 2% whole, or cream? Right? Yeah. Right? And people are always like, oh, yeah, it's 2%. And I'm like, okay, medium body. Like, we're on the same page. So,
Yay.
Yes.
Way to put it.
So just helping people kind of come up with the, because wine does have a lot of terms that are really difficult for people. Just dry. Like, what do you mean the wine is dry? What does that right. Distinguishing between sweet and fruity is the one thing that I think confuses folks who come to my class all the time. I'm like, neither of these wines is sweet. You might smell something that gives you sweet, but that's probably the fruit that you're smelling. But there's no sugar in either of these, right? And helping people kind of get through that so then they can go out in the world and go to wine shops, go to wine bars, go to restaurants and be able to pick a wine off a list and have some more confidence about the experience is great. And then if I can, by proxy, get some more women and more people of color into the industry, then I feel like I've done my job.
So what kind of classes do you teach at the Milwaukee Wine Academy?
Yeah, so we have a kind of a range. We have our standard monthly classes. We teach classes twice a month. It'll either be on a region or a theme or a grape. So because we're in March, all of our classes have focused on female winemakers for Women's History Month. So we had one, last weekend that was just whites and sparklings made by women. And then we actually have one coming up on the 23rd that is just red wine made by women. So we have those kinds of classes that we do regularly. We also now teach certifications. I actually just wrapped up the last day of class for the Spanish Wine Scholar certification, which was my first certification. So it's kind of a full circle moment.
Yeah,
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah, I have 6 students that are really awesome. Some of them are in the industry, some somms and retail folks, and then there's some folks who just really love wine and wanted to study Spanish wine because they're going to Spain on vacation and things like that. And they take their exam on the 29th, so I'm like rooting for them, and hopefully they all pass. But it's so much fun to teach and drink these wines if we've traveled around Spain every week and learn this history. So that's been a lot of fun. And then we do kind of large-scale community events as well. So in February for Black History Month, we did a Black wine producers event with a local radio station and had 90 people at this radio station and had, table set up and it was kind of, I was on a stage and just talking through these wines with people and just having a blast.
Awesome.
And then, yeah, so, it's a mix of things. We also do private events. So people have hired us to like come to their homes or to their jobs and do tastings for a small group. So it's a little bit of mix of everything, but education is the core of it, is really trying to get people to drink better wine and at least know what they're drinking, know what they like and what they don't like, and be able to articulate that.
Mm-hmm. It's
Amazing.
so interesting because, I wanted to ask, I almost have an answer in my head, but obviously I want your answer. But, I was going to ask, what is it that makes the Milwaukee Wine Academy different? Just from talking to you, I feel like I have an answer on this, what I've gleaned from it, and I'll share that with you. But obviously, I want to just kind of pose that to you first. What is the difference, and what did you want to bring into it?
That's actually a very difficult question for me, in part because I haven't really experienced many other wine schools to know. All of my wine education has been online. I've never taken a wine course in person. And so I think for me, it was about creating community. I think at this point...
Can I tell you that's exactly the word I was going to say, Dr. Coleman? Like, not joking. I was going to say everything that you've told us so far has been about the community that you're trying to build, which is amazing. I didn't mean to interrupt. Please go ahead.
No, that's fine. I think that's the key, right? One of the greatest things about wine is that it brings people together, right? Mm-hmm. Like the 4 of us are here enjoying these amazing wines and having a good time. And the next time you have either of these 2 wines, it brings you back to today, right? And so I think that's also one of the cool things about wine, that, beer can maybe some spirits can kind of do that, but there's something inherently cultural and social about wine that I think is a great, avenue to be able to bring people together. And I think particularly in this juncture of the world, I think there needs to be more community, and I think wine's a good way to do that for those who do partake in alcohol.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
More wine couldn't hurt right now. Like,
right.
More wine.
Yes. More wine. And also for those who don't drink, we did do a non-alcoholic wine class in January for Dry January. And that was really fascinating because I had never had non-alcoholic wine, and so able to teach that and learn about how those wines are made. Super wild. So everyone can partake, alcohol or not.
Absolutely. Yeah. We'll have to pick your brain. Every once in a while we try to find some good non-alcoholic wines because we want to celebrate that as well for many different reasons. We haven't had a whole ton of success on finding the right ones yet.
Okay, I'll pass you a list.
Please,
because the methods have clearly really gotten better and better and better over time. And we did an episode a long while back where we learned about the different ways they de-alcoholize wine, and it's wild. It
is
cool.
wild. Yeah.
But let me ask, so when did you start the Milwaukee Wine Academy? September
of 2023.
All right. So where do you see the future moving forward? How do you see it growing? What do you want to see for the future?
Yeah, so it's wild to think it's been a year and a half and there's been so much growth already. One thing I would like to see is to kind of have an army of instructors. As much as I love teaching these classes, I would love there to be others, and we do have some others who have come on, but to kind of grow this group of instructors, be able to add more certifications that we're teaching, and ultimately kind of create a pipeline of people. Because not only do I want to affect the local community, but also affect the industry. And I think the only way to do that is to kind of create this pipeline. Like, I really believe, I see this in my own academic journey. I would not have gotten a PhD without the people who helped me along the way. And so I think it's similar in the wine industry. Like, we have to kind of help each other in the same way that, you all lean on Colin and his knowledge, right? And you,
yes.
but I've sold through the show, I've seen like Joel and Aaron, you guys are really, you're up there. And
Picking
so,
up.
Trying.
It's
yeah.
impressive.
And so I'm really looking forward to seeing the day when all three of, all of us have to continue that education, right? And that's what I want to support, is like get more people to learn. And whether you want to do formal kind of WSET or Wine Scholar Guild for, education, that's great. But if you just want to be able to say, okay, I love sparkling wine and I want to learn about everything there is about sparkling wine, I want to be that place for you so that you can enjoy what you enjoy.
Amazing.
Be confident in
So
it,
cool.
right?
Exactly.
What it is, and yeah. I love
All I want to
Yeah.
do is be able to walk into a restaurant and look at the wine list and not panic. That's all I want. And I think that's what everyone wants.
I think that is what everyone wants. However, I will say, and I'm sure this has happened to the three of you as well, is once you become known as the wine person, every dinner you go to, the immediate thing is like, here, Aaron, here's some.
I don't want that. And
I
yeah,
don't
you're
want
right.
it.
You're right.
I don't want it. Although I will say, sometimes I'm like, oh no, you can pick the wine, and then I'm like quiet, like, oh no, don't pick that, right?
But
So
not
I'm like,
that
you know
one.
what?
Just
Let me
not that one. Just not that one.
just not that one. So I'm like, you know what? Just give me the menu. It's fine.
It's a blessing and a curse. Yeah.
Right.
That's awesome.
Too funny.
This has been, a great conversation. We've learned so much about you and what you're doing. Is there anything else about what you're doing, what you got going on, any of your projects that you would like our listeners to know about?
Ooh. In terms of where to find us, we are on social media. It's MKE Wine Academy on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And then our website is mkewineacademy.com. All of our classes and certifications are in person at the moment, but we are looking into doing some online stuff. So, stay tuned, but also just follow, even if you're not in the Milwaukee area, just to be able to get connected to other like-minded folks who are interested in wine. It's also great for me and the other members of the team to be able to learn about what other folks are doing. So whether winemakers, enthusiasts, and somms and so on, we'd love to hear from you and learn more about you and your projects as well.
And I'll be sure to put all that stuff in the show notes. So if you miss any of that, check them out in the show notes. I'll have all the links for everything down there.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Amazing. Well, fantastic. I know as soon as you have classes online, I will be signing up. I'd be excited to join. So we've had some time to sip and enjoy these wines for a bit. So we're not going to let you go yet. There's a couple more things we're going to do before we end. But
Yes.
What we really got to do now is we got to decide, how are we experiencing these wines?
Yeah, but did they like it? It's time for the review.
So for folks who've been listening for a long time, we've kind of adjusted our wine. We don't even like calling them ratings. We don't like calling them ratings because we don't use numbers. Just kind of how we experience wines. Obviously, if a wine is no good, it's a drain wine. We don't want to waste your time and waste your wine. There are wines that we call backup wines, maybe ones we're not going to go out and buy, but, we're going to pull out in case of emergency. We have our casual drinking wines, which are the ones that, you might have for around the house, but you're not necessarily going to show off to other people, but you like it, and that's fine. Then we have our must shares, the wines that you want to bring out to dinner, you want to bring over to a party. And then, of course, the coveted wine fridge, the place that, each of us only get 3 spots. And if you want to put something in, you got to take something out. And that's how we think about our wine. So let's start off with our Cava. Dr. Coleman, do you mind one more time, just real quick, just running down the whole what we're drinking?
Yes, this is the 2018 Juvé Camps Reserva de la Familia Brut Nature Gran Reserva. and it is a Cava.
Thank you so much. I would have pronounced 0 out of those 18 words correctly.
We know them
Joel,
now.
No, nope. I keep hearing it. I keep looking at it going, that's how I should say it. And I keep hearing it correctly and going, that's not what I was thinking.
Fair enough.
Joel, can I start off with you, sir? How you feeling? Sure. Where's that going?
Yeah, okay. So it's funny because clearly, like, first sip, this would have been a must share.
I know where you're going with this.
And then we had the Corpinnat, and I think the comparison, and this is a fantastic Cava right here. The comparison, though, is giving me a little bit of a thing to think through here.
Interesting.
And so I think what I'm going to do, and I love the dryness of this one, the crispness. I love that. And to me, when we were kind of talking about the breadiness and the fruit, everything was very even here, which I think is really cool. And I think some people will really, really like. And for me, I wanted it to tip one way or the other. So I think I'm going to make this, don't hate me, I'm going to make this a casual drinker in my book right now.
Interesting.
Okay? Yes.
Okay. I don't hate you.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm reading some undertones in there. Colin, how about you, man?
Yeah, I think it's an easy must share in my book. I mean, if you like Cava, this Cava will blow your mind. I mean, it is just Cava to the next level. Usually the Cavas that you would see in the grocery store are kind of the lesser version of this wine. This just has more intensity of fruit, maybe a little bit more of that breadiness, which I really enjoy. So yeah, if I'm bringing Cava somewhere, I'm picking this one up for sure. So an easy must share for me.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, Colin. I think that this is a great must share. I think there's a lot of reasons too. I think it's a great tasting sparkling. I think for the average drinker too, who's just like sparkling wine is sparkling wine, they're gonna call it champagne, like because they don't know any better. Like this is a tasty bottle of wine. I think it's and whether or not they should factor in, it's a beautiful bottle. It has a vintage year. It's $20. Like if I'm gonna go and I'm gonna go to a baby shower or something, I'm gonna show up with this because this is enjoyable. It looks really nice. And it didn't kill my wallet. So I think it's an absolute must share. Dr. Coleman?
All right. I'm torn between leaning with Joel and leaning with you and Colin, in part because I really like this wine. I agree with you. This is something that I could bring. I could drink this. This could be an everyday sparkling wine. And at
Sure.
I've seen it as low as $17 in some shops and $22 in others. Wow. Like at that range, it's an everyday wine. You buy a case of them and just have them for random nights. And absolutely. So is that a casual drinker or a must share? Because I would share it, but it's also like I would just have it on a random Tuesday night. So I don't know, but I will lean, because must share sounds more positive. I'll lean that way.
I like it. I love it. And, I am okay with our ranking system being so gray that it's confusing, because that's perfect. Because I think there's no confusion about whether or not folks like it, and it's absolutely not a waste of your wine. No,
definitely not.
No way.
It's a great deal. Fantastic. It's a lovely,
at $20
lovely wine. Everyone should try it and then see how they feel about it. All right,
but I get that too, because I want to sip this casually. I don't need to share this. I want to share it.
Right.
But I'm also just going to buy this to have it in my house.
Can only be shared. I drink Baronia weekly. All right, like alone.
Alone.
That doesn't diminish the value of that excellent wine. All right, wonderful. So I think on one end, I think that. I don't know if that was easier or harder than what our next one's going to be. And I didn't say this at the beginning, Dr. Coleman. I'm not avoiding you. Just when someone chooses a wine, they get to go last. So, Joel, I'm going to go back to you. Where are you putting the Cope?
This one was also hard because I love everything that we learned about this. I think the background is so cool. Not that should necessarily influence my review of the wine, but listen, it does a little bit. I think it's very cool. And I tell you what, just the experience of trying this, so good, so complex. That breadiness, the care, the time, to build that into this, the 6 years on the lees, incredible. Did I flirt with the fridge? I flirted. I think I'm going to call this an absolute must share, probably toward the top of my must share, just because there's so much to talk about here, and one of the cooler experiences that I've had trying wines with you guys in a little while. So must share from Joel.
Excellent. Colin?
Strong must share.
Yeah, Joel might have flirted with his wine fridge, but I'm taking my wine fridge out on a date because that's where this wine is going, because this is outstanding.
Dr. Coleman, you did it.
Love it.
I can't imagine putting this anywhere else. The value you get for 35 to $40 is insane. This easily beats out some champagnes in the same. I would probably imagine most champagnes in that price range if you can find them. This has all the complexity. It has really nice fruit. It has the breadiness that some people love about champagne is in this wine. You can tell there's special care in this wine, which is what I really appreciate about it. And it's just so good. It's just so good. I can't imagine not putting it in the wine fridge because I'm just enjoying it so much. It's just, and
what are you taking out?
I knew it was good because the wife also had a glass, and she looked at me. She pointed her glass and went, "Mm-hmm." So we got the. What am I taking out? Well, let's just go sparkling for sparkling. I'm going to take out the De Saint Gall champagne, and I'm a Cava man now.
Wow, there it is. And as a reminder, taking something
You're
out of the fridge.
You're a Corpinnat man.
You're a Corpinnat man. Oh,
excuse
yeah.
me.
Come on. Get on the level, Colin. Yeah. And look, we're going to create a space on the website for our fallen soldiers, the folks that have been pulled out of the fridge. It's still, the De Saint Gall is an incredibly well-priced champagne.
Indeed.
Like $35 for a really good champagne. Hold on to that one. And, now we have a Corpinnat.
I'm buying this over that every time.
I'm saying.
100% of the time. I'm buying this over that. It's incredible.
Colin, I'm not trying to show you up, and I think this is going to be even more dramatic because of the history here, and maybe it's the wives because I don't know if anyone saw it. I did hand the bottle up to the heavens. Erin took the littlest sip because she is very pregnant, but it's what they do in Europe. We're trying to be more European.
Yeah.
And she took the littlest sip, and she was sitting on the stairs and was just like. Just big thumbs up for the listener at home. So I got to make a hard choice, and I got to take the Dom de Cantverner out of my wine fridge.
What? Oh my goodness!
Which has
this
been
is
there
huge.
since the dawn of time that I had to fight for. And this is the reason
Blowing my
why
mind right now.
they kind of check similar boxes. While the Dom de Cantverner is not a sparkling, obviously, it is that really crisp, dry Riesling. And the thing I like about that, this is checking a lot of those same boxes, but just on an elevated level. And if I have to really think, if I'm not just being blindly loyal and stubborn, this is a much better bottle of wine. And the Dom de Cantverner is a slightly more, $27 is not expensive, but the Dom de Cantverner does land on the higher end of some of the bottles that we've had on there, and this is not that much more than that. And it's just a lot more elevated. And so if I had to choose between the two, so Dr. Coleman, mission accomplished. 2 out of 3 of us converted. I have to take one of my favorites out. And the Corpinnat is now in the wine fridge for me as well.
I am overjoyed. I actually didn't think I would be able to. I wasn't sure. I thought I could get Colin. I didn't think I could get anybody else. So, wow. Okay. This is awesome. This obviously is in my wine fridge. So, that goes without saying. This is an incredible wine. And as another tidbit of my story, for Barcelona Wine Week, the Corpinnat producers, at the time there were 12, had this base wine tastings where you got to try the wine, the primary wine before it goes in the bottle with the lees to age. And you went around and you tasted everyone's base wine, and then you got to try the finished wine. And I got to the Feixes table and I was like, what is this? And I was like, okay, I am not leaving this country until I go to this winery and meet this winemaker and like go check out his facilities. And the whole thing was incredible. It was like this medieval, building that's been there since the 1400s. He has this amazing winery that's 15 meters underground. I was just like, this is so cool. I'll have to send you guys pictures after we finish recording, but this wine's incredible. And for the price, like Colin said, like this knocks out any champagne in this price point and hits way above its weight. Like to get a champagne that's been aged for 6 years on the lees would cost you over $100. Like, that's not reasonable for most people. And, to be able to get this for 35 to 40.
Yeah.
All day, every day.
Doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense that you can find wine that good for that price.
Yeah.
Like,
It's incredible.
I could have a bottle of this in my house at all times. Like I could just have one ready to go and then get another and not feel bad about my wine spending, which is already I feel bad about. But like this will not make it worse. Like
Fits right in.
Yeah, it fits right in the vibe at the time.
Awesome.
So, yeah, amazing. Mission accomplished. Well done.
Indeed.
Like fantastic. However, before we let you go, and we just had so many good conversations, we got to play a game. It's
I'm ready.
Here.
You okay
So
with
we're
that?
going to
All
play a
right,
round of PiNope and ChardonnYay.
Yes.
My favorite game.
A favorite.
It's a fan favorite. It's a fan favorite. It's everyone's favorite.
It is.
So we thought of some fun ones, and I got to be honest with you, Dr. Coleman, we tried to hone in. We're like, all right, we have a college professor coming on our show.
Oh no.
So we are. Let's really lean into the real academic side of wine. So
Okay.
here's my PiNope or Chardonnay.
You're setting
I know.
this up so much.
I know
better.
the way I'm saying this up is actually. Don't get offended. This is just we're making fun of ourselves too.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So PiNope or Chardonnay. Correcting a random person at a party when they call a non-champagne champagne.
Oh no. This is a complete I don't know this person at all.
No, you're at a party,
Let's say
random
you know
person.
them. Oh,
No.
I was gonna say it's like an
You're at a
acquaintance.
party. I'm saying you start a new conversation. You're talking to
Okay.
this person. It's going really well, and they're holding up the glass like this is like the best champagne I've ever had, and they're holding
That makes it
something
spicier.
else.
Prosecco.
Yeah, they're holding a
love that.
prosecco. I'm not even going to give you Cava or Copinnat.
Yeah.
They're
Oh, I'm
not that
correcting them. I have to. I feel like that would hurt my soul. I have to correct. I would do so in a very gentle way, but I would simply say, "Oh no, this isn't champagne. It's prosecco." I wouldn't go down the nerdy rabbit hole of explaining the whole thing, but I would just say it's not champagne.
That's a Chardonnay.
Chardonnay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm a Chardonnay too, and I think the fun way you could do it is explain the difference in bubble size. You'd be like, "Oh, look at these bubbles made, because of the way it's made, are a little bit bigger than what you would find in maybe a traditional method sparkling wine." So,
That's a fun way to do
you don't
it.
have to be like, "Oh, you're an idiot." Yeah.
That's a fun way to do it. You think that's going to land better? Hey, buddy, hold on. Let me talk to you about your bubble size.
I don't know what fun is. So,
Joel, you Chardonnaying this?
I'm definitely Chardonnaying this. It reminds me of a time I was at a New Year's party in the U.S. in Atlanta, and they were passing around bottles, and I looked at a bottle, and I forget who it was, but it literally said on the label "American Champagne." And I
know
like,
who it is.
Stop the presses. You know who it is?
There's a loophole, right?
Yeah.
Isn't there something weird?
3 producers that can still do that, right?
Yeah, it's Corbel, Andre, and I forget the third. But yeah, it's like this
There's another one in there.
100-year-old loophole that the French government decided to back off on these 3 producers, but they have to say American champagne.
I just learned so much. That's incredible. Yeah. Well, it must have been one of those 3 then. I'll tell you, when I got the bottle, it was like record scratch. I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. Something's not right here, because this
Yeah.
can't be. But that's incredible.
And all not great. If you think about those 2, Like the fact that they're able to put champagne on their garbage wine is incredible.
I was gonna say like, and also like the producers are like,
Yeah, it's not great. I mean, it's mass produced, right? I mean, they're cranking out millions of bottles a year. It's it's rough.
Wild. Aaron,
That's being
what about
very
you?
kind.
yeah. I don't mean to be the one naysay. Like I'd be a PiNope only because I would just sit there and enjoy the fact that like they're being dumb and I can just like be like,
I know something.
yeah, I know something you don't. I don't think but I'm yes, I'm a PiNope on that. Dr. Coleman, did you happen to have one, Dr. Coleman, or no?
Oh, a PiNope or Chardonnay. Okay, sparkling wine, since we've had those today. Flutes, PiNope or Chardonnay.
What a good one. What a
I'll go ahead and start
May I
that one
jump
off.
in?
oh, wow.
I love the lean. That was amazing.
May I? Yeah, go ahead.
Please.
First. Completely understand why you asked this question, and it is a fair question to ask, and I understand that a bulbed wine glass gives you more of the experience and lets you, get the aroma much better. Fully understand it. But I am a big-time Chardonnay on flutes and whatever sparkling wine glassware that you have, because there's just something about, like, the cool glassware, too, and the cheers and people holding cool things. I love a coupe. I love a flute. I like it all. Chardonnay.
Okay.
Yeah, I am a PiNope. I mean, if I want to feel fancy or something like that, sure, I'll break one out. If I'm at a wedding, somebody's going to serve me champagne in a wine flute. I'm not going to ask for a white wine glass. Like I'll take it. But if I'm
Does that mean
you
you get more
sparkling,
wine, though? Sorry,
no,
continue.
That is a good question.
That is a good question.
It's like class.
But yeah, so in general, even at home, I'm drinking my sparkling wine out of a white wine glass. So I'm not much of a flute guy.
I'm gonna be the rational person. I'm gonna say it's a PiNope if I'm assessing the wine, but if I'm at a party or a celebration, I want a flute. I want a Chardonnay in a big stupid tall glass. Like, let's go. Like that's I only do this like 3 times a year.
So I'm torn on this. I'm generally a PiNope, and even at a restaurant now, I will, if I order a glass of sparkling, I will ask them specifically not to put it in a flute. And
Yeah, that's fair.
at most restaurants and wine bars, they get it. So it's never been like, what do you mean? But like Aaron said, if I'm at a party and you give it to me in a flute, I'm not going to be mad. As long as it's good, I'm good. Like that's
Yeah, for sure. 100%.
Amazing.
I love it. That was great.
Awesome. All right. Well, Dr. Coleman, thank you so much for joining us tonight. This has been so much fun. I don't think I have had this much fun and learned so much and drank so much good wine in one evening. We're usually like 2 out of 3 maybe in a while. So, just thank you so much for being here. We appreciate you just joining us.
Absolutely.
Thank you guys so much. This has been so much fun for me, and I'm so glad that you like the wines. I just really quick want to thank the folks at the sorting table for sourcing the bottles of the Corpinnat for the 4 of us, because that was a lot of logistics. So thank you to Cesar, Jason, and Steve there for making that happen, and to the amazing winemaker, Josep Maria Huguet, for making this wine, because that's incredible. And, this has been so much fun. Thank you guys again, and anytime you want me back, I'll definitely come.
I was about to say
100%.
you are welcome back as a guest host anytime you want.
Yes.
And you don't have to make Cesar drive wine up from Miami every time you come on. That was so nice of him. And Jason met me in my work lobby in like Times Square. So like incredible people at the sorting table, like truly awesome.
So appreciated. Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much. Anytime. Welcome, come back.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Guys, that was freaking awesome.
Unbelievable.
Guy.
What a cool dude. Just the coolest of the cool.
Dr. Coleman, one of the smartest people I think I've ever met. Just so
Smart
many.
and cool.
Just like what an incredible combination of just like wine knowledge, history knowledge, curling knowledge. Like what? That was so much fun.
We didn't even about scuba diving. We can talk about that. I really wanted to talk to him about that. We're going to have him back to discuss that a little bit.
Sure. At the sorting table, which in case folks miss that, like incredible distributors and
Amazing.
Jason from the sorting table, like hand delivered wine to my work. Cesar from the sorting table drove wine from Miami to Orlando.
They moved
Wonderful
heaven and
people.
earth to get us this wine this evening, which, just huge shout out to them. Appreciate all those guys. And just phenomenal wine. Man.
So good. Who would have thought we'd have 2 wine fridge wines tonight? And yet, and
that was his goal. And he succeeded.
That was good. He's been talking about for months. So much appreciation. And we'll definitely have Dr. Coleman back on the show. In the meantime, if you would like to interact with our show, Joel, where would someone go to find us?
Yes. Go on to all these things. Search Stop Wasting Your Wine. Go on to Instagram. Go on YouTube. Go on TikTok. Those are really the big ones. Find us there. Go to stopwastingyourwine.com if you want to see everything we've reviewed and where we placed everything. And that's pretty much it. Wherever you're listening to us right now, Spotify, Apple, YouTube, wherever it is, go ahead and give us a follow and a like if you haven't. We'd appreciate it.
Joel, you've gotten so smooth at that. Remember, like the first 2 months of the podcast, you would wave us off because you just didn't know what the internet was, and you were like, "No, don't call on me." And now that was slick.
I was still trying to make my MySpace pop at that time, and then I realized it wasn't going to work, and I had to get into the new stuff, and I did, and now I'm good. I'm good to go.
Love that.
Awesome. All right, everyone, thanks for joining us. This was another fantastic episode.
Amazing.
We'll see you next time. Bye, y'all.
And remember, stop wasting your wine.
Bye.